I'll just do like a pendulum wave.
Ooh, I like that. That's fancy. And I'll just do the...
Dun, 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 dun.
Wait, are we starting?
Hey guys, it's Cody with Indie Game Pulse, and there's Geoffrey talking over me.
We're very good at that, but
Yes.
it's only our second time, so welcome back for episode 2 of Indie Friends. Hi, Cody. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Geoffrey?
Doing good. I'm excited for another month, April 2021, for us to talk about all of our indie game news, and we're happy to have you all here. So thank you.
And it is a packed month. At least it has been so far, and I think the week that we're filming this in, the middle of April, is also a packed week with tons of great indies coming out. So I know we're both looking forward to talking about them together and sharing them with you guys.
Exactly. That's what's kind of fun about, Cody and myself doing this is we talk about this stuff all the time, whether that's on the phone, texting, Discord, whatnot. So to be able to share it with all of you is kind of the goal of this. So continue to let us know how you like this. If there's other things you want us to talk about, we'll do our best to make it as fun as possible. I feel like, Cody, each week we say, oh, this is the busiest indie week. And then the next week happens. No, wait, no, this is the busiest indie week. And I feel like that just happens each week. Is that kind of how it feels for you sometimes?
I think that's just the nature of indie gaming, is that a lot of times, there is some planning ahead. There's some developers who announce a month or 2 months or however far ahead that they're going to drop games. Mm-hmm. And then there's some that just say, hey, in 3 days, our game is finally coming out after, 2 years of waiting. And there's just, it's fun. But I think for content creators and video creators, it can be a little hectic when stuff like that happens.
It can be, especially when you're trying to review stuff and want to get out, a quality video about the game. And, you realize all these indie devs put in so much love and time and effort. And the last thing we want to do is, not give it the proper, time it deserves to give a proper review or proper gameplay, because that's people's lives that they spend so much time on these games. So. But I think speaking on this, something that you and I in March were excited to talk about was the Future Game Show. And I unfortunately didn't have the time to watch a lot of it. I saw little, pieces and bits here and there. But it sounds like you watched some of it, right? And were able to find some nuggets of indie goodness from that Future Game Show.
Tons of nuggets. It's a literal gold mine of nuggets.
All the nuggets.
I was actually out of town when it happened, but when I came back and watched it, I was blown away. So I'm just going to hit... I think just five games that were announced that really struck me. So the first one is Hidden Deep, which is like a sci-fi mining thriller. Visually, it looks very similar to something like Carrion, which came out late last year, where you played as an alien monster. This has you it's like a mining survival against aliens. Very similar to the movie Alien, actually, it seemed. But that one looks really good. Also, Fling to the Finish is like a co-op partnered racing game for, I guess, 2 to 8 players, because it does seem like you need a co-op partner. But you're connected via what looks like a noodle, and it's very physics-based, and you're racing against other teams. So I thought that one looked like a lot of fun. I know a lot of people enjoy co-op games, like Overcooked and Moving Out, stuff like that.
Those physics race. Oh, sorry. I just want to say those physics racing games or those physicsy type like co-op game party games can always be such a riot, because like you can't expect a lot of the outcomes. Tangentially to that one, now that you mentioned that game, this is completely aside from the Future Game Show, but I felt like it's appropriate to mention. My wife and I downloaded a couple days ago this game for like $2 on sale on the Switch. It's called Tied Together. And it's basically exactly what you just said. You're tied together by this little rope or noodle, whatever you want to call it. And you just have to go through short levels trying to work together, but essentially it just comes off as chaos, and you just like jump into spikes and you just yell at each other with love, obviously.
Right.
And but those kind of games, same with like Fling to the Finish, it sounds like it'll provide a lot of laughter, which is good, or ruining a friendships, one of the two. Yes.
No, that sounds exactly like this game, strangely.
All right, I rudely cut you off, so please continue.
So another world premiere was Haunted Space, and this is a massive, what am I trying to say? Like
it's
galactic.
Massive.
It's massive. It's galactic exploration, like a flight sim, maybe a little more flight sim than Everspace 2, which came out several months ago. Mm-hmm. But to me, it looked like a mixture of Everspace 2 meets Transformers meets Mass Effect, which is one of my favorite series of all time, even though it's not indie. But the visuals just look amazing. If you look up the trailer, I think you will probably be blown away like I was.
So, Cody, let me ask you about that one, though. It's called Haunted Space. Notoriously, I know you hate horror and scary stuff. It's not your cup of tea, right? So, from what you saw in this game, does it seem like it's going to have like horror elements, or is it just more part of the title and it's not? Because to me, it sounds like a Dead Space type of game, if you will. Yeah,
it does kind of have the Dead Space feel. I think it's going to be more time in the ship, though, like piloting your ship throughout space, and less time actually exploring on foot, like Dead Space was, correct?
Yeah, that was just like a third-person survival horror, but it was very much went into the horror action. So it sounds like this is more space sim flight game as opposed to like on foot sections. Is that what you gathered from it?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. And very like atmospheric horror, maybe alien type horror. I don't know. The trailer showed off some massive alien space creatures or ships. Really, you should look it up.
It sounds cool. When I saw that on this list, I was intrigued by. So, okay, cool.
Because it has the word haunted in it, I know.
Maybe it's because it has the word space in it.
Maybe.
No, you're right. It's haunted.
Okay.
All right, what's the next one?
The last one, I guess we only have 4 here. I can't count. Is Operation Tango, another co-op game. I love co-op games because it's a way for me to involve my wife or other friends who are like casually into gaming. Mm-hmm. But this one, Operation Tango, is a co-op, an asymmetrical co-op. So you both have different roles, and you're trying to infiltrate bases. It's basically different spy missions, and it focuses a lot on your communication together and working together while doing things separately as well. So one person might be looking up or trying to figure out a code, trying to solve a code, and trying to communicate that to their partner who's trying to put in the code on a machine.
That sounds cool. Wait, how does the game
play? That was a horrible explanation.
I mean, I won't play based on what you said. Woo, we're getting spicy. It's getting spicy on our second episode. Those kind of asymmetrical games specifically are always intriguing because the way they play, like you really have to have a lot of strategy, I feel like, in how you communicate with your teammates. How does the game look like it plays, though? Like in terms of like, is it top down? Is it 2D, 3D? Like I'm trying to get a vibe of how it looks, I guess. Do they show much in the trailer, or is it more a cutscene type thing?
I think it is actually first person, which might be kind of difficult for casual gamers. Like my wife doesn't know how to control first person camera. So probably more like intermediate people who actually game will get more out of this.
Okay. It sounds cool. We need more good asymmetrical or just co-op games in general. So there you go. There's another one to think about when it comes out.
It's very cartoony. It's very colorful and cartoony. The graphics are really nice. So I think it'll be a fun one to check out. Oh, one last thing. The trailer mentioned that friends play for free. I don't know what that's about. I don't know how that's possible. But seems like a great deal. And it seems like definitely a way to get people interested in the game, to get people involved in it. So I'm really looking forward to checking that one out. And that comes out June 1st.
Ooh, nice summer. Nice to jump into summer. Well, at least summer where we're at in the United States. But I think what's cool about that is the play for free. I've heard of that with different, I can't mention one right now because I can't think of any, but I have heard of a few games. I think the one that comes to mind is the game A Way Out, which was like a 2-player only game or a co-op only game. You couldn't even play it solo. It had to be online. But I think if you had a copy of the game and your friend or family member didn't, they could jump in and still play it with you and go through the story. So only one person had to have it. It sounds like this might be a similar type thing, which is really cool.
Yeah, so It Takes Two, which came out recently, published by EA, semi-developed by a larger independent team. But it had where one person could buy the game, the other person could download a free Friends Pass, which still downloaded the whole game, but you could only play it when your friend was playing. So maybe it'll be something like that. I'm not sure.
I think it will be because the developer, I could be wrong. I think the developer's called Arclight Studios. They're actually the same developer that made A Way Out. Oh,
okay.
So the people that made It Takes Two is the same people that made A Way Out. So they must be trying to like push that player friendly focus, way forward where, we see so many times with games where you have to buy all these things just to play. So to see a game like this, or hopefully like this Operation Tango, take that player friendly focus, like that's just great to see. And you see that a lot in the indie space, but it's nice to continue to see that. So hopefully that'll be a fun one.
Absolutely. And what about on your end? I know you wanted to talk about the recent E3 announcement, which is sad for many of us.
Yeah, I'll keep this brief because I know E3, for those that don't know, the Electronic Entertainment Expo. It's that giant video game convention that takes place in Los Angeles every year. And I know a lot of you are probably saying, hey, that's not indie focus. And you're right. It's mostly just games in general, typically AAA stuff. But the reason I wanted to bring it up was because E3 has sort of been dying out. Last year, because of everything that happened, it didn't happen at all, which is understandable. But this year, they just announced that E3 is changing. It's going completely all digital, and they do have the likes of Nintendo and Microsoft's rather, and they have some bigger players on board. I'm not sure how that'll play out in terms of indies. E3 isn't really an indies place. But with it being all digital this year, I thought it'd be interesting to see, do more indie developers, are they able to come on board and maybe showcase some of that? We'll have to see, but that does take place in June of this year. So it's just something to keep an eye on.
It does seem like having it in a digital space would make it more accessible for indie developers to participate. If E3 is inviting them or allowing that, I'm not really sure how those things work, but the cost of going to these expos, the cost of traveling to different countries to do them is brought down a ton when it's done digitally over the internet. So yeah, I think it can be a good thing for the indie scene especially.
Yeah, we'll see if it changes how if it is more indies that come into it, or is it just AAA. But when it comes around in June, we'll be sure to cover some of that if it's indie related, obviously. And two other quick things. I'll keep this brief, but one of them is very niche. But the platforming game Stitchy and Tukey Trouble. It's a very small, lovingly created from the developer Polygoat. It's very reminiscent of Donkey Kong Country, and the reason I bring it up now is because it actually releases this week that we're recording, this April 15th. It was supposed to come out back at the beginning of March. They had some issues with Nintendo just nailing down a release date. So for those that are interested in a nice little platforming game, that does come out this week, April 15th, and I'll have a little review on that when it comes out. So just a quick update. And the last thing is Xbox Game Pass. I talk about this a lot in live streams. Cody and I have talked about it. I'm a huge proponent of Xbox Game Pass because they're really doing a lot. Microsoft is doing a lot to gather indies each and every month. Two recent examples is one game Cody reviewed, Genesis Noir. I know you didn't like it that much, but it was on Xbox Game Pass. It's still an indie. And Narita Boy was another one recently. And the upcoming Rain on Your Parade, which looks like a really, really fun, whimsical game, is going to be day and date on Xbox Game Pass. So I really just kind of want to let everyone know, that if you have an Xbox and you don't have Game Pass and you love indies, it's good to jump on board because there's a ton of them that come out each month, and I just love to see that. So do you have any thoughts on that? I know you've played some of these games, obviously.
I have, and I love that Microsoft is getting so involved in the indie scene that they're shedding light to so many of these smaller developers that, like we said earlier, work so hard on these games for years. And not that AAA games don't, but it's, this is more of a passion project, it seems. So it's really cool to see Microsoft putting in the effort to bring them to the masses, to a lot more people than would normally see them.
Yeah, it's cool to see that. I mean, the more people that can try indies, the better, right? We believe that, of course, because we wouldn't have channels if we didn't, right?
Yeah. And Game Pass is an incredible value. What is it? $15 a month?
I think it's $15 a month in the United States if you bundle it with like the gold or something like that, where you can get like gold deals and play online. But I think the basic is maybe $10 or something. Either way, it's a lot of value when you think about AAA games, indie games, just to try them out. I mean,
right. That's basically the cost of one indie game per month. And this month you're getting access to 3 of them, like on the day they released.
So jump on that. If you're not, what are you doing? Wait, what are you doing?
I am not on it.
All right, well, this is our last episode. We won't be doing any more. Yeah. All right, why don't we move into, I knew there was a few little news updates that we had. I know Cody had one about a game leaving early access. Do you want to tell us about that? This one sounds pretty exciting.
Yeah, so Edge of Eternity has been in Steam Early Access for over 2 years, and they finally announced that they are coming into 1.0 on June 8th. If you haven't seen Edge of Eternity, it is a beautiful game, very Final Fantasy-esque. Anime characters, just really gorgeous landscapes, fun animal characters to interact with. I'm not sure if you can tame them. I haven't played it, but I have been following it throughout early access. They've been releasing kind of episodes or chapters as they've gone along, and then this final update into 1.0 will add over 20 hours of gameplay. So a really nice looking game, and then along with 1.0 on PC, it's also coming to PlayStation and Xbox in Q4 of this year. So probably sometime around Thanksgiving or Christmas in the United States, sometime around Boxing Day in Europe and Canada. Maybe.
I don't know what Boxing Day is. Is there an unboxing day? That's Christmas, I guess. It doesn't matter. We can move on from this.
That's like 4 to 5 days later when the mail comes.
Yeah, that's the unboxing day. Anyway, thanks for putting up with this shenanigans.
Back to the news.
All right, the last little newsies. I don't know if this is really news or an announcement, but we like to shine the light on specific indie developers. And recently I put out a review for this tiny little 99-cent platforming game called Tori 3D. It's on Nintendo Switch. You'll be able to try it soon. Cody. It's from a developer called, I think it's Ciactro something. His name is Marcus. He's a solo dev who makes these really small, nostalgia-filled games. If a lot of people have heard of this one on Switch called MacBat 64, it's very much a throwback to Banjo-Kazooie and the like. But this game that just came out last week, rather, when we're filming this, Tori 3D, it's $1. It's literally 99 cents, and it doesn't give you a ton of gameplay, but it makes you feel like a kid again playing Nintendo 64 games, PlayStation 1 games, and he's one of the most kind people when you talk to him, or if you talk to him on Twitter or the like. So just wanted to say, as a little update, it's 99 cents. Buy the game, support the developer if you like platforming games. That's all I have.
Yeah, I was very surprised when I saw your review, and then you said it was $1. I think I've played games that cost $20 that looked like less fun than this game, than Tori 3D. So let's talk about, Geoffrey, our favorite games from March. Quickly before we get into our upcoming games of April, what was your favorite game that you played in March?
So controversial, not in the game, but how you pronounce it, is Kaze and the Wild Masks. I've heard it pronounced Kaze, I've heard it pronounced Kaze, but I think it's Kaze from reputable sources, of which I don't have any. Kaze and the Wild Mask is it's basically just a 2D platformer, very, very nostalgic from games of like the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. And it's basically, you play as this cute little bunny, Kaze, and you just go through different stages. It's a very linear adventure, but it's colorful, it's bright, there's collectibles, secret areas, it's very challenging and punishing, but it's just a feel-good game, and it brings you right back to those days if you had played platformers from way back in the day. Kaze and the Wild Mask really just filled me with a lot of happy vibes, and I think a lot of people did play it, but I wanted to just shout out that one for March. Kaze and the Wild Mask if you like platformers. What about you, Cody?
Well, talking about Kaze and the Wild Mask, it was very reminiscent of Donkey Kong, even down to the fact that you were collecting the words Kaze as you progressed through each level as like a kind of a bonus, which you did the same in Donkey Kong countries way back in the day. But yeah, I really liked the look of Kaze and the Wild Masks. I didn't get to play it, but the worlds looked really, really pretty, really colorful, and it looked like a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, hopefully you can try it out someday, but I know the one that you have for March, Cody, I'm excited to hear about because this looks like I can't wait to play this one day. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so Dwarf Romantic is still in early access on PC. It launched in March. But for an early access game, it feels entirely finished. It has so much polish on it. It's a tile laying strategy game where your resources are limited to your stack of tiles, and as you lay tiles, you meet different requirements to get more tiles. So basically, it's a race against your limited resources, but the game is just beautiful. The soundtrack weaves in between piano and synth, and it's constantly going back and forth. It's filled with nature sounds, birds, and you can watch trains go around the map. That's my favorite thing. But it's a super beautiful game. And like I said, it feels very polished for an early access game, which I find quite rare. But yeah, if you haven't seen that, do go check it out.
It is rare. You're right. A lot of early access games do get a bad rap or can get a bad rap for just not being that polished, which is understandable. But if you haven't checked out Cody's live streams, he does some really, really fun, enjoyable live streams. And that's where I learned about Dwarf Romantic, was watching him play it specifically on the live stream. And it was just laid back and relaxing, and those ambient sounds. Like, it looks like the perfect game if you've had a stressful day or long day. You just want to unwind for an hour, kind of chill out and just turn your brain off, but just feel some stress relief, I guess. That it looks so great. I can't wait to try that one day. So thanks for highlighting it. Well, so those are just a couple from March that Cody and I really, really loved. Of course, that doesn't scratch the surface of what we enjoyed, but we're in April right now, and April means new indie games that we're excited to talk about. So Cody, you have two, I have two. One of them that you have makes me laugh every time. I showed my wife yesterday and she couldn't stop laughing. So why don't you tell us about the two, or one that you have, and I'll talk about them, and let's go into April.
Sure. So I'll talk about the one that probably makes you laugh. Turnip Boy commits tax evasion.
It's just a silly name.
It's a silly name for a silly game. You play as a turnip boy, and you are just going on random missions. It's very, very much like a story adventure, very light and simple gameplay. But the characters you meet, the story that you discover, the story that you discover, it's just cute and charming, and you get to wear different hats. I don't know. It's a cute little game that seems like kind of like Dwarf Romantic, like just a little stress reliever to unwind after, a stressful day. Maybe not even a stressful day. Maybe you just enjoy casual games. This is kind of where that one falls into for me.
I mean, those casual or type of just those charming, whimsical games. I know the other one you have we'll touch on is exciting too, but this one just looks like a funny, happy-go-lucky time where I think we need more of those games. Not everything has to be heavy and action-packed and even scary. I know I like a lot of those. So this one, when you talked about it, I thought it was a joke. I thought it was like an April Fool's joke belated, but no, it's a real thing. I looked it up, and I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, so let's talk about one of yours that's also in that kind of casual, light humor even category.
Yeah, it is very similar. It's called Rain on Your Parade, which, as I said before, does come out on consoles, PC, but it does come out on Xbox Game Pass day and date. I think it's the 15th of April or 14th, right? Something like that. But yeah, very same. It's very colorful. You play as this cloud that just has to go around and I guess ruin people's day by raining on their parade, literally, as the saying goes. But it does sound like there's some charming and endearing moments where you're actually helping people in turn with other like puzzles and how you solve that with the use of your water from your cloud, since that's how clouds work, kids. And I don't know how clouds work. Don't listen to me. But Rain on Your Parade has that very similar style, just charming, whimsical, very colorful, adventure game, linear. But if you're looking for a lighthearted, more casual experience, that's one I'm excited for too.
Yeah, one aspect that I really like of Rain on Your Parade is that you can draw the face of your cloud.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of creative options there. And also in the trailer, I think it's really funny. It opens up on like a wedding in like just a bluebird sky type of day. And then this one like gray cloud comes in with an angry face and just starts like pouring on everybody. So that kind of sets the tone for what kind of game this is, I think.
I love it. Cody, can you show us what face on your face that you'll make on your cloud? I think our community wants to see the face you'll make. I think you need to.
Probably like before I'm raining, probably something like mischievous, like. And then when I'm raining, probably like I'm like squeezing it out, like.
That sounds about right. I hope that sound effects is in the game as well.
We'll definitely leave that in the video.
We have to.
What about you? Any good face ideas?
Just painful, not knowing how to handle life, all of the above. So, all right, Cody, let's move into another one that your name has been associated with because of how you can switch around the words. Let's talk about it.
Cozy Cody Grove. We're talking about Cozy Grove, which is something you've played as well. So I love that we'll get to kind of chat a little bit about it together. But Cozy Grove, you play as a spirit scout, kind of a Girl Scout of sorts, but you are stranded on an island where you must explore, and every day you discover new spirits around the island that you can help to learn more about them. And I feel like I've lost my train of thought. I thought you were...
It has those vibes of, for people that like Animal Crossing, Stardew Valley, albeit not as much with the farming, but that Animal Crossing life sim type of game that's very charming, right? That's kind of what Cozy Grove has a lot of as well. That more relaxed, you do things day by day, right?
Exactly. So you can fish, you can pick up seashells on the beach, you can dig up leaf piles and holes in the ground to just discover a lot of different things. But yeah, like you mentioned, the game is played literally day by day. So one day, the game will kind of tell you you've run out of things to do today. Come back tomorrow. And it's just, it's kind of nice in a way to not feel like the game is trying to addict you into it, to try and grab your attention for as long as possible and give you limitless things to do. But the game is like, okay, go do something else now. So yeah, I actually like that aspect of it.
You're absolutely right. That day by day aspect, where at one point we've talked about this with our communities in Discord. Actually, we get really sad when the day ends because you can't really do anything else as far as moving the game forward. And it is nice because then you have that excitement to look forward to the next day, whether that's completing a new quest or just making your little bonfire. His name is Flamey, making him bigger. There's so many little charming moments, so much so that we talk about it with our Discord communities all the time since the game has come out. So that's going to be an exciting one for sure. So thanks for chatting. Or it is an exciting one because it's already out.
It is already out.
I know how this works.
And your next game that you wanted to highlight, I actually don't know anything about. So why don't you take it from here, Geoffrey?
Yeah, this is Kingdom of Arcadia. It's brought to us by East Asia Soft. I don't have a lot to say about it right now, but just it's very, very much a platformer. It kind of bills itself as a Metroidvania, but from what I've experienced so far, it's a little bit more linear than that. But you go from stage to stage. You play as a kid who plays his dad's arcade cabinet and gets sucked into it. That story we've all done. And he basically has to free himself out of this fantasy world by finding these magic scepters. It's very simple. It's a budget experience, but it's very... You can upgrade your character along the way with better armor and swords, and you find collectibles and secrets. So if you like that kind of a little bit more linear platforming Metroidvania game, it's one to look for as well. And it's very colorful and charming. So just a simple one to keep on the radar.
Is it a 2D platformer?
It is. So it's like a 2D pixel art like we've seen before. It is confusing because it kind of bills itself as a bigger Metroidvania, but in reality, it's a little bit more stage-based with a little bit of exploration. So...
Okay.
Which isn't a bad thing by any means. But yeah, those are our games from April that we're at least looking forward to. Obviously, in the comments, let us know the ones that you guys are excited about. We love chatting about and hearing about it. But I think that means we're moving into one of our next and one of our probably most favorite things to talk about, right?
Yeah, there are, obviously with so many indie games coming out every month, there are a lot of great indie developers out there. But we wanted to just take a little time to highlight the two that we appreciated the most in the last month, or even this month. So Geoffrey, why don't you start with Green Dinosaur Games?
Yeah, so I love that we talk about this because we come across so many indie devs that it's just fun to highlight them for various reasons. So mine for this month is, again, it's a solo developer, and I apologize, I couldn't remember his name at the top of doing this, but it's Green Dinosaur Games. And recently the games are Duck Souls Plus and Pinkman Plus, which are two smaller, bite-sized budget, 2D, basically stage-based platforming games. But the reason I specifically want to highlight Green Dinosaur Games is because this solo developer, you can tell he genuinely cares about the people that play his games. And now the reason I say that is because at the end, okay, I guess I should say, this is kind of a spoiler if you haven't played those games. So spoiler warning if you don't want to hear. At the end of Duck Souls Plus and Pinkman Plus, which won't take you more than an hour or two, at the end, the very last stage, you jump around and you uncover this little message that the developer reads that is essentially along the lines of, you guys playing and buying my games makes me eternally grateful and happy and warms my heart. I couldn't do this without you, and just goes into these beautiful little moments of just saying thank you to his community. And for me, that just strikes a big chord of realizing that a game's not going to do well without its community. A community is not going to enjoy a game if there's not a passionate developer. So Green Dinosaur Games, who makes those games, really, really just cares about the community. And that meant a lot to me playing and buying and playing those games. So I just wanted to share that. So check those games out. Duck Souls Plus, Pinkman Plus. Cody, I'm excited to hear about yours, though, because I only recently heard about this developer. So why don't you go into what yours is?
So mine is Duck Bridge. Recently, if you're on consoles, I think specifically Nintendo Switch, I can't remember if it came to Xbox and PlayStation. Mm-hmm. I want to say it did. But
it did, yeah.
Luxlinger is the game from Duck Bridge that I've played recently. A really fun kind of spaghetti western pixel art game. But they're a very small team. I want to say it's 2 people. It may be more than that now. Mm-hmm. But they just seem to put a lot of care into their games. And Luxlinger has been out for 5 years on PC before it came to consoles. Wow. And when it came out to consoles, they are still patching it. So the game's been out forever, and they still care enough to patch it, to listen to what the community is saying, specifically concerns about the difficulty of the game, which I experienced. I think you did as well, Geoffrey. Mm-hmm. It's a tough game, but I love that they are still listening. They're not just taking the money that they made from it and running, but they do care, and they've been very, very responsive and vocal about it. And then going forward, I think in May, their next game, Boy Beats World, mm-hmm. which is kind of a top-down pixel art rhythm battler.
Oh, wow.
But that one looks really cute. It has some really catchy music if you look up the trailer, but it's one that I'm really looking forward to playing, especially now that I know that developer cares so much about their community.
That's awesome. I love that you're highlighting that, Cody, because you and I both played Luxlinger, and I didn't know about that part about the game being out 5 years, or I just didn't realize it. So the fact that you said that it's so cool, because the games, not just indies, but games get a bad rap if they're older and then just get ported over to a console or something like that, because they don't often get updated. So to hear that Duck Bridge, not Luck Bridge.
I know. I kept getting confused with that too. I was like, Duckslinger, Luck Bridge, what the...
Especially because your developer has duck in it. My game that I talked about has Duck Souls. So.
Yes.
But Duck Bridge, the fact that they're still updating a game from years ago shows their commitment to it. So I'm glad you highlighted them. Thanks. And
something that we asked you guys to kind of partner with us in this video, we asked you to send us questions at the end of our first Indie Friends episode. So we're going to run through those, albeit pretty quickly. But our first question comes from Idan Shiv, and he says, how do you guys approach the production of a new review, and how much time does it take? Geoffrey, I'll let you give it a crack.
Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, is it Idan or Idan? I just want to pronounce his name correct.
So it's actually Idan.
Idan, okay. So none of the ways I said. All right.
Right.
So Idan, I know we've seen you in the community a lot. Thank you for the question. For me personally, it just comes down to, once we get a review, a copy in this case we'll talk about, it's just a matter of playing through the game. Personally, I don't take notes as I play. That for me just distracts me from the experience. I play through the game, and then when I start writing the script for review, I'll refer back to the game in certain sections if I can. And then it just comes to writing a script and basically just recording some audio, getting some gameplay, and editing together. When all is said and done, depending on the length of the game, that could take from 5 hours to 10 hours. But for me personally, editing takes around, 2 to 3 hours, depending on the video. But it's a lengthy process, but it's so fun from start to finish. So what about you, Cody?
Yeah, I'd say pretty much the same thing. For me, it all depends on how long the game takes to play. A larger game, something like Blue Fire that I played in January, took 17 hours to play. So there's so much more footage to kind of go through and choose from what you want to show. Mm-hmm. And there's also a lot more to talk about. So, yeah, I think it all depends on the game, but generally 1 to 2 hours for writing a script. Like you said, sometimes my videos take 2 to 4 hours to edit. Again, usually depending on how much footage there is to go through. So overall, yeah,
it just depends on the
5 to 8 hours after the game is over. We can put out a video copy of a review.
Yeah, it just depends. There's so many factors. So, well, thank you for that question. We really love that one, and keep having them come in. We appreciate you part of the community. Our next question, then, it looks like it's from one of our wonderful community members, Kevilo. Hello, Kevilo. Thank you. His question is, what's the worst game you've played so far this year? Doesn't have to be one you've reviewed, just one you've played. Thank you, Kevilo. Cody, why don't you go ahead and start us off with that negativity first?
Sure. So one that I just mentioned, actually, Blue Fire. And I know this is going to light a fire under some people because they love this game. For me, I just didn't love it. The exploration felt really confusing without a map and without kind of a directional arrow or quest markers. So that really made the game drag on a good bit too long for my taste. But to be fair, it's a beautiful game. The worlds are really nice. It's very Zelda-esque. And a lot of people mention that. It draws from a lot of great inspirations like Delda.
Duck Zelda? I like that. Duck Zelda. That'll be the new version.
Yes. like I can't even say it now.
It's Duck Zelda.
Like Zelda, Hollow Knight, Dark Souls, and many more, I'm sure. So yeah, it's not all negative, but to me that really just dragged it down, having to spend so much time re-exploring things that didn't really matter in the end. So anyway, Geoffrey, negativity throwing your way.
Yeah, so the game for me that did drive me crazy was, nope, I almost said the actual old name of the game, was Taxi Chaos, which is inspired by Crazy Taxi. I almost said that wrong, which would have been sad. So Taxi Chaos is very much paying homage or trying to pay homage to the original arcade classic game Crazy Taxi that many of us have played in arcades or the Dreamcast or whatnot. But Taxi Chaos very much looked like the spiritual successor or prequel or whatever you want to call it to Crazy Taxi. But not only was it a very expensive game with a price hike on Nintendo Switch, it basically plays like a very, very poor version of what you would think Crazy Taxi is today. You essentially drive around and pick up customers and drop them off and get money, and you want to just give them a crazy experience. But it was just a buggy mess. And I hate to say these things because Cody and I both, we wanted champion indie devs. We know a lot of time puts into it. But if you're spending $30, $35 for a game that A, lacks a ton of content, isn't polished, and is simply just a slog to play through, it's just frustrating. And it seems like a lot of care wasn't gone into it. So for me, Taxi Chaos was the one that just really fell flat, and it was one I was excited for. I don't know if you tried it, but yeah, it wasn't a good one for me.
I didn't try it, but I was pretty disappointed when I watched your review, which was very thorough. It was a great review. Go check it out if you're interested in Taxi Chaos, Crazy Taxi games like that. But yeah, I was pretty disappointed when I saw that.
Well, Kevlo, thank you for the question. Let's go ahead and move into the next one. Cody, who do we have with our next question?
That is a great question because I'm not sure how to pronounce the last part of Chef's name. I always just call him Chef when I see him in streams.
I'm pretty sure it's Chef Yu. I think it's Yu, like just
Chef Yu.
I'm pretty sure it's Chef Yu, but if I'm wrong, let us know in the comments. But yeah, Chef Yu.
Yeah, that's our question to you guys. How do you pronounce this?
How do you pronounce your name, Chef? All right, well, why don't you let us know what the question is, and let's go into your thoughts on it, Cody.
Yeah, so Chef asked, is there a game that you can recommend for kids? I actually have two, Overcooked and Moving Out. They're both kind of couch competitive or couch co-op games. Very, very fun to play just casually. But they're very easy to pick up for kids too, and for kids to understand what's going on. There is some strategy to it, and the kids that I've played it with were anywhere from, I want to say 8 to 10, and then maybe into like early teens. So maybe not young kids, but I don't know. I think a lot of people could pick these games up and play them. Geoffrey, did you have any suggestions?
Yeah, those are good choices. I know those games are a lot of fun just to play co-op together, so I could see families enjoying that. For me, mine's a really big deep cut. I don't think anyone will have heard of it, but it's called Putty Pals. It's basically a little game where you can play two players. So if you have, again, if a good family game, you basically each control this little like putty Play-Doh looking character, and it's essentially a little puzzle platformer. You move through different levels, but you have to really work with each other and like grab onto each other's hands, and you can like give a little thumbs up to each other, which yeah, it's superfluous, but it's really cute and charming, and it's just a simple story, but it's just about going from area to area and trying to like swing together and work together. It's on Switch, it's probably on PC, but it's called Putty Pals, so it's a deep cut, but yeah, any of those three games that we both mentioned would be great for kids, great for families, which we try to stay family friendly on our channels, obviously, so we'll continue to highlight that stuff.
Yeah, great question, Chef.
Good job, Chef Yui. Whatever it is, let us know, please.
Chef Yu.
Chef Yu.
All right, so our next question, Geoffrey, is from One Up Level Up, and we actually have a very similar question. So I think we'll probably dive into both of these at the same time.
Sure.
So One Up Level Up asks, what is the first indie game that you guys ever played? And Steve also asked, what was the game that got you into indie gaming? So I know for me, the answer is one and the same. What about for you?
Yeah, those are great questions because they're hard because I feel like to remember, right, all the games that we've played or from years ago or even more recently, it can be hard to remember. But thank you, One Up Level Up. Thank you, Steve. We appreciate your questions. For me, all I can think of right now, the first indie games that I remember playing way back on the day when Xbox Live Arcade on the 360 would release some indie games was Braid and Castle Crashers. So Braid is very much a puzzle game, but it's very narrative heavy. It's a lot of fun. And there's a game called Castle Crashers, which is kind of like an arcade beat 'em up game from the team Behemoth. Those two are probably the first two I played, but I would say the game that actually really hooked me to indie games, which this is controversial, but A Plague's Tale: Innocence is...
I knew you were going to say that.
No, you don't. You don't know me. It's controversial in that it's kind of crosses that line of indie/AA, but I consider it indie. Basically just a phenomenal narrative, pure single player game that I just played through in a weekend, which I rarely ever do unless it's for a video. So those are my answers. Cody, I'm excited to hear what yours is because it ties both of those questions together. So let's hear about it.
Yeah, so the first indie game that I ever played is the one that got me hooked. It is Hollow Knight. Metroidvania, Souls-like 2D platformer with gorgeous art. Geoffrey, I know it's not your thing, which surprises me because it is kind of like spooky horror-esque. It's not scary, but it is spooky. But yeah, for me, at the time I was really into Call of Duty and playing that with friends. And one night when I didn't have any friends on, I just said, I'm going to go on to Xbox Game Pass and find something that looks fun. And I ended up playing that for I want to say an entire month. 80 hours into it, easily 80 hours, over 100% completion. The game just swallowed me up. And I still love it. It's a fantastic game in my opinion. I know it's not for everybody. But yeah, for me, that's the game that really opened my eyes to see this is what's out there. These are the kind of games. It's not just first person shooters. There are so many cool games out there to discover and enjoy for really any type of mood or whatever you're fancying that day. You can pretty much find something that will fill that need.
So thank you to each and every one of you for your questions. It really, really means a lot to both of us. And I think that'll lead us nicely into just for next month, right? Which is coming up. I can't believe it's almost May 2021. So tell us a little bit about what's coming up or what we expect from the community if we guys want questions. What's going on, Cody? Awesome. I can't wait. Hey, where can they find us is what I was meant to actually say. We got to keep that in. Okay, go.
Well, do you want to... I mean, I can't really think of anything coming out next month. I'm so mentally drained in this month.
I don't know why I said that because I can't either. I think what I meant to say was tell us what month is next, but that was a stupid question because we should know how months work. No, it's not. It's December. Happy Boxing Day, everyone. All right, we'll keep some of this or not. We'll see what happens. All right, Cody.
We'll see.
Cody, why don't you say things?
Okay. So, thank you guys so much for joining us. We've had a blast spending time together and also being able to share this experience with you. Thank you guys for sending us questions. We both hope that you will continue to send us questions in the comments below. Again, it doesn't have to be indie game related. It doesn't have to be video game related. But we just really appreciate that you guys take the time to watch these videos and on YouTube. But Geoffrey, where else can somebody find you and follow along?
Yeah, make sure to check out both of our channels, Indie Game Pulse and the Indie Gaming Guild, which we already know most of you already are. So again, thank you for being here. Thank you for the questions. Please let us know in the comments as well. What type of stuff you'd like to see for this. We're happy to keep that conversation going and bring in some other content creators as well. But I can be found at Twitter at Indie Game Guild. What about you, Cody?
Also on Twitter at Indie Game Pulse, so same as YouTube.
And you have some other outlets as well. I know with Facebook and Twitch, you have some other avenues. Why don't you let everyone know about that?
Sure. So you can find me on Twitch, also at Indie Game Pulse, on Facebook Gaming at Indie Game Pulse. You can join our Discord. I'll have that in the description below.
I'm also on MySpace and the Yellow Pages.
Yeah, check your phone books, kids.
Check your phone. What's a phone book, kid? I don't have it. All right. But yeah, please let us know in the comments, what questions you have for next time. As Cody said, it could be game related, not game related. Just again, keep everything family friendly. That's what we try to do here. But it's been a blast, Cody. Thank you for spending the time talking about games and everything from April. And we're both excited for May, and we'll bring another episode of Indie Friends as long as we remain friends. All right. Thanks, everyone. We had a blast. We'll see y'all later. Thanks, Cody.
Bye, guys.